offer my humble pronouns to the divine Lotus feet. And I thank the Lord for bringing us all together here this weekend. We're all triply blessed to be here. And it's a great joy for me personally. I can think of nothing that I would prefer doing than to be among you. And then what has been transpiring since our arrival has only reinforced that perception. A long time back, when Al Horning, Phyllis Crystal, and I were discussing the merits of a young adult program for the North American Satisfied Organization, there was great excitement and enthusiasm. And that excitement and enthusiasm quickly mushroomed. Al Honig in particular, would tolerate no delay when it came to initiating young adult projects, service activities, retreats, and any other kind of activity. And Swami, both on the inner and outer level, there was many signs of encouragement and support. Of course, we were talking about it in New York and in St. Louis and in California, but simultaneously, the same kind of fervor was beginning to go and sweep around all around the globe. And soon there was a torrent, an avalanche of movement, positive movement in this direction. The Psi Young Adult program has grown mightily since those early days. And the parent International Psi organization has benefited tremendously as a result. Already you've heard examples or references to the fact that the leadership torch has been taken over by eager, competent, and devoted young adults. We have example after example of young adults coming to the forefront and making important and meaningful contributions to the moving forward of the Psi mission. But let us come now to the present, to the unfolding of this Zone 1 Young Adult Conference. All of us, each one of us in attendance today, this weekend, are recipients of a special grace. No one here is here by mistake or by accident or just a notion or a whim. Regardless of what the ego-influenced mind might have told us we could or should do about getting here, he willed it, and here we are. All the possible obstacles were removed. They just evaporated. So what we want to do is to keep in mind, as other speakers have alluded to, keep in mind our good fortune and managed to not only give thanks for this opportunity, but to make sure that we are doing our best to take advantage of this rare divine privilege. We are hearing, seeing, and learning about many projects. You can see at the exhibit hall concrete examples, but we're talking to one another and we're getting inspiration from what others are doing, projects that we ourselves can emulate and repeat in our own situations. But the really distinctive inspiration will come when we turn within ourselves and seriously and carefully ponder just what it is that I am to begin to do afresh and with more vigor as a function of having been selected by Swami to be here for this weekend. And we'll have to turn within and ask that question. If we do, the answer will certainly come. We have to, though, be a little bit apart from our normal chit-chat and conversation and retire at least for a few minutes and go within to get that question put and to receive that answer. Let us also keep in mind that Sai's mission cannot fail. Keep that in mind as we talk about what we're trying to do to help it move forward. It can't fail. He does not need us to advance this program of uplifting the world and bringing in a golden age. It is simply His grace, His boundless grace, and our good fortune, and the merit we've won, and the prayers that our parents and ancestors have made for eons, that is giving us this opportunity, this chance to be a part, to be an instrument. So if we should happen to squander this opportunity, it may never come to us again. So it is a very serious situation that we have. It's a delight, it's a joy, it's a privilege. We feel so blessed. But it is also a big responsibility. And it is a responsibility that no one else can tell us how to carry it out. We have to go within ourselves, into the deep recesses of our hearts, and get that sense. And it's not necessarily going to be spectacular or something that we compare with other people, but it will be just right for what Swami intends and wants us to do. Another way of finding out what uniquely is expected of us at this point in time is simply to say to Him, and again, to say to Him in a quiet and a private manner, please lead me into activities that are pleasing to you. Please, Swami, lead me into activities that are pleasing to you. Some things we already know. We already know that he wants us to do certain things. He wants us to be courageous. He wants us to be careful. And he wants us always to make a little effort to try to imagine the perspective of the others with whom we are interacting. Sometimes we're so eager to give to people, to share and so forth, that we don't take into consideration sufficiently where they are at that point in time. It's almost analogous to the situation where we render service. The person who appears to be receiving the service should have something to say about how fast, how much, and under what circumstances we deliver that. So try to be attuned to the so-called other. We also know that we should avoid trying to bring about a specific behavior in another person. Sometimes we say, well, what can I do to make so-and-so do such and such? And we say that really quickly, or we say it automatically, but that's a very big trap for us. Rather, let us pull back from that and function and focus on the effort of what we're trying to say at this point in time, but not worry so much about that so-called other in terms of changing the other's behavior. One of the reasons that we sometimes become disappointed with ourselves is because we allow our minds to convince us that our preconceived notions, this mic is missing not doing exactly that our preconceived, we get to thinking that we have a preconceived notion of what a successful outcome is. And when we don't see that, we get disappointed with ourselves, or we get upset and disturbed. And that's a very big mistake for us to make. We are premature when we conclude that we have failed. We can't fail. We will never fail. It's like Swami's message, Swami's mission. It's simply the fact that there are a multitude of different ways that the good results can be manifested. And our preconceived notions sometimes don't include those. Another simple thing, but like so many of the things that Swami points out that are simple, they're really profound. Another simple mistake, error that we make, that we can stop making, has to do with our becoming impatient. Impatience, again, manifests itself when we are in effect demanding an immediate indication of success, of our having succeeded in what we were trying to do. We want to see the results right away, and we're impatient. We want to attempt something, and it doesn't come about. But the trick is, for example, we might start a new meditation technique. We hear that it's going to, or we read about that it might bring us some joyous feelings, or it might advance us spiritually and so forth. And We do go through the motions, but if we don't seem to make the progress that we thought we would make after a few days, we begin to slack off. And pretty soon we drop the whole idea, and we don't pick it up again until we get inspired down the road some other time. But what's ironic is that many of us not only are impatient, but we are sort of satisfied. Some of us even seem to be bragging when we say such things as, well, I just don't have that much patience. I'm an impatient person. I know I have patience. We say, and we're devotees saying that, and that's a serious flaw. No Sai devotee should be satisfied with the awareness that she or he is demonstrating impatience. It should be the other way around. Swami told us many, many years ago a magic formula. He said, patience is all the strength you need. Anything can be accomplished. You have the strength to do it if you have the patience. The impatience throws our mind awry. We forget what we're trying to do or how to do it or our good experiences. So one of the very first things in anything we start out that we are relaxed. We're not overly looking for quick success, or we don't even know if we're going to recognize success. Our orientation henceforth is to enjoy making the effort, enjoy doing our best, and not getting carried away or caught up in the rest of the drama. Coming back to one earlier point, the key to correcting any faulty habit is practice. Practice. Swami says that there is nothing in this world that doesn't succumb to practice. There's nothing in this world that doesn't yield to or succumb to practice. But here's the situation. Let's take, for example, a simple thing like learning to play a musical instrument. I recall as a teenager, I got a saxophone. And I wanted to play the saxophone, and I had these people who I was listening to, and they would be so inspiring and so forth. And I put it in practice, but it wasn't persistent, it wasn't steady. And then, lo and behold, I would see people, other kids who started after me, and after 2 or 3 weeks or a month or so, they were playing so much better. And it was just amazing to me that other people could do it and I wasn't doing it. And it took years before I really began to get a better appreciation of what's going on there. The nature and the amount of practice that we have to do will differ from person to person. It is not something that everybody can do something 10 times and they'll be at a certain level. We come into this world with different potentials, different propensities. We also have different life experiences that are reinforcing and helpful or harmful as we go along. So we shouldn't get ourselves trapped into, again, looking for comparing ourselves with others. Swami says that's one of the worst things that we can do, and particularly when we talk about making some sort of spiritual progress. So many times we hear ourselves saying that, well, there's a lot more, much better person, much better devotee than I am. But we don't know that. We don't know how good that person is, and we certainly don't have an accurate perception of ourselves. What Swami wants us to do is to continue with that faith, continue to practice, continue to do our best, and to relax. This is, again, where faith comes in. In the Bible, we can read that faith is the substance of all things hoped for. Faith is the substance of all things hoped for and is the evidence of things not seen. The substance of all things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. There's a beautiful photo I saw recently of Swami in a reclining position. And underneath it said, "Do your best, leave the rest to the Lord." Do your best, leave the rest to the Lord. We sabotage ourselves when we permit ourselves to get worried and concerned about how well we're doing. Don't make those judgments. Don't get into that trap. It's a very, very awesome trap to fall into, and it's hard to get untangled from it. This is a zonal conference, and so there are some people here who I have not had the privilege of speaking with before, and I'll take pardon of those who have heard me, but one of the things I like to do over the years, I've been encouraged to do that, is to try to leave certain little capsules, little templates that we can remember. It will be easy to bring up in an emergency. And that gets us always into something that we started referring to as the ABCs of Sai teaching. So I'm going to do that with your indulgence one more time. And if you haven't heard it, I hope that you will take it to heart and remember it. It's a kind of, in a capsule, a way of having at our fingertips one way of looking at the sum and substance of Sai's teachings. Remember our ABCs. So the first ABC we remember is always be content. That's an important thing, contentment. We're always in the right place. Yesterday we were driving, coming here, and we kept using the GPS, and we kept seemingly getting into some other situation. But all the time it would come that we were in the right place. Be content. Why get upset and get all hot under the collar? ABC, the first ABC, always be content. I'm not going to go into great detail. You can multiply these things yourself. The second one is always be cheerful. Always be cheerful. Swami does not like, as he calls it, castor oil faces. Be cheerful. We know about the Lord of the universe having come among us and having selected us. We have so much going for us. We can at very least be cheerful. And the third, as Brother Reddy mentioned earlier this morning, is always be careful. And in this context, we're talking about our self-satisfaction with our spiritual progress. Spiritual arrogance is the worst kind of arrogance. So while we want to keep having things that make us self-confidence, we don't want to get the feeling that someone who doesn't, for example, know about our side is farther away from God than we are. We must learn to relate to every perceived other human being as a reflection of the divine and try to operate from where the other person is coming from. We don't have to try to drown them with what we like to think about all the time. We don't have to tell them so much about science unless they ask us, unless they start giving us a genuine request. Otherwise, we talk about God or whatever they want to talk about good, talk about values. We try to work in a way that reinforces and shows our tolerance and our love for them. And so we're being careful not to begin to think that we really know it. We say all the ways are good, but our way is, the practical. We think it's the best. Finally, keeping those ABCs in mind, one of the young adults many years ago they came up and said, why don't you add a fourth one, ABC, and that's avoid bad company. Avoid bad company. And for young adults, very important. And bad company is any body or activity that threatens to move us away from our goal. Our goal is to try to be in harmony with the Lord's teachings, to try to be doing things that are pleasing to the Lord. And when there's something that is distracting us from that or pulling us in another direction, that's bad company. Finally, another young adult, after hearing these ABCs many years in a row, said, why don't you add D, E, F, G? D, E, F, G. I said, D, E, F, G. She said, yes. And D, E, F, G, don't ever forget God. Sarah.